As the leagues around the world come screeching to a halt once again, the international break is here. So, on this Monday morning, with no club football to look forward to, I go to
What?
Memory Banks and see, and to Arsene Wenger brought up a proposal to limit international windows to just one or two a season, with the second international break in the very young European season. Should international calendar be remedied, Mr. Jason Davis?
Is that how we're looking at this? Remedied. That's how we're going to say this. Okay, I'm actually
Reconstructed.
all right. I got it. This is so everybody can see it here on the live show, so you can read it. This is what Arsene Wenger proposed for international soccer. This is from 2021, so it's been 3 years since Wenger proposed this. And obviously, in the international window, as you said, Robert, we're trying to figure out, do we need to change things? A biennial World Cup. Okay, well, come on. Let's just a biennial World Cup, Arsene. What are you nuts? What are you
That is not
crazy?
that is not part of the proposal that I am interested in.
Okay. Confederation tournaments, including the European Championship, in odd years. So this is he's saying a World Cup every 2 years, a Confederation tournament like the European Championship, Gold Cup, Copa America, Asian Championship in odd years. I guess he means every 2 years for those as well. Again, that's not what we're interested in, right? So this is the big one that you're kind of bringing to the table. Either one, October, or two, October and March mid-season international breaks for a month in total when qualifying for major tournaments will take place. Groups of 4 countries are envisaged with a playoff for a maximum of 7 matches. And then guaranteed rest period for players once tournaments are over. Now, I will say that last one, Robert, I
Huge.
mean, we'll come back to the windows, but the last one is right now in this moment. Rodri's broken. Players are upset and complaining. We're talking about strikes and stuff. I mean, nobody feels like we're about to tip over yet because I think it's kind of like one of those deals where you don't really think it's going to happen until it does.
Mm.
You don't think your car's going to break down until it actually does break down. Then you got to deal with the ramifications of it breaking down. I think that breaks for players are absolutely necessary, but in order to get there under Wenger's plan, you have to do the different windows. And we are doing how many windows do we have this year? We got a window now. We had a window in September. We're probably going to have another window
January.
in January, right? Yeah. Well, there's
At least the U.S. is.
the U.S. has a camp in January. There's not. I don't know that there's an international window in January, but
So
there are too many. Right? Is what people constantly complain that there are too many international breaks, and this is Wenger's way to try to fix that. But would this be better in your mind?
I do really like the consolidation of the international breaks. When this article or when this proposal came out, there was 5 international breaks during the club season. And I think that it does both a disservice, both the club game and the international game. So we're 2 months into the season, and this is already the second break.
There's another
Especially,
one in November, by the way. There's another
oh,
one coming up next month. Yeah.
goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. I
So we
mean,
go October, November, March, June, which is going to be after most of the domestic campaigns are over. I'm looking. This is 2024 into 2025. Then obviously we have the summer. So you have the Gold Cup next year. Then again September, October, November, and then March again. So that's 4, right? We're talking about 4 during the season proper. And Wenger saying no, do it either in one, meaning October, take all of October off, and do qualifying, or do 2 weeks in October and 2 weeks in March.
I think the doing all in one break in the season, like taking the whole month of October or March off to do that, I think those teams the international teams would have more time together in order to establish a quality team play. And it would also allow the rest of the world in the club sphere to get on a run and galvanize their own teams. And part of some of the quotes from Wenger at the time, the current schedule offered no clarity, no simplicity, or no modern way to organize a season. I think if we go on like this, we will hit the wall. And we might be getting near to that wall now, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, you take these players. Now, not every player has the same experience, right? And there are obviously plenty of players who don't get called up to their national team at all. But the top level players, right, the ones who right now are speaking out about the number of games they're being asked to play in a year, those are the ones that we have to be concerned with. If you want to maintain the quality at the top end of the game, well, you can't keep running these players into the ground the way that you are. So and you're saying, hey, obviously for some of those European-based players, oh, you're in the Premier League, oh, you just hop over the channel and you're in Europe, and then boom, you're playing international. It's not a big deal. But there are lots of players who go from England to Brazil, or Italy to Brazil, or Spain to South America, Argentina, the United States, CONCACAF players going back and forth. And that's going to be killer. I mean, that travel adds to the level of fatigue and the wear and tear on the body, in addition to all the games they're being asked to play. So, we talk about travel in Major League Soccer because it's such a factor with the vast distances that teams are spread apart in our country. Most countries don't have to deal with it. Certainly European countries don't have to deal with that. But it doesn't seem like their travel is being brought into the equation quite as much as it maybe should when we talk about the wear and tear on players. And again, it's not just it's not just the travel; it's how often you're traveling, right? We're talking about 4 windows. Where you leave your club, you go to your team, you train. Maybe you fly to a different country for a game. You're flying back. You're flying, and we've even heard stories. I think it was one of the Spurs internationals who said something like, "They did not even work out how I was supposed to get back
I think it's
to
Romero.
England." Yeah, it was Romero, right? He said there was no like consideration for me to try to get back and be ready to play again. And again, is that on the international program? Who's, generally speaking, we know, corruption and a lot of graft and a lot of money being, and even just then budgets, even if it's not about graft and corruption, it's about budgets being smaller. Then the clubs are saying, we resent every single international window and every single international call. We don't want our guys we're paying millions of pounds to go off to play in a game where they might get kicked in the knee by a third division player from Bolivia or whatever. Right, and everybody is at odds with all of this, and now again we add to this because there's this race for more games. There's a race for more revenue. We have UEFA, who controls the top level of the club game. So FIFA saying, wait a second, we want a piece of that. Now we got the Club World Cup, which you and I have talked about, Robert, which seems ridiculous. We got all these teams coming into the United States. The games are going to come fast and furious. We don't know how seriously they're going to take any of it. But you're asking players to do more travel, play more games. They are not robots, and it feels as though this whole thing treats them as such. And while I think Arsene Wenger has some pretty insane ideas, number one being a World Cup every 2 years, there certainly is something to be said for the way that he wants to eliminate some of the wear and tear on the players, because international football is great. We don't want it to go anywhere. But we can't keep doing it the way we are and expect it to stay the same and feel the same and still deliver the way it always has.
We shouldn't forget, with all the ideas we don't agree with Arsene Wenger. It is good to remember that part of what made him so great was he kind of revolutionized the approach to player health, diet, and the way that players take care of themselves, and that was a big reason why he was able to elevate that Arsenal team at the beginning of his coaching tenure there.
Yeah.
And so he puts in this quote back when he proposed all this, is it's absolute detrimental to the players, the repeated travel and jet lag without reducing the qualifying period. I believe that clubs will benefit and the players will benefit from the reduced load. And just to put it in real world terms, the only match that Liverpool lost this season, the league leaders in the Premier League, was the game straight after the first international break. And if I was a betting man, I'm not a betting man, if I was to bet on any upsets of the top clubs in international football, I would bet on that first game after an international break.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It just makes sense that these players are gassed from their travel. We demand, and this is certainly true of American soccer fans with our U.S. men's national team. It's been a major talking point over the last 2 years with the whole Berhalter saga and the player pool and everything else. We demand maximum effort and commitment from our international players, from our national teamers, every single time they pull on the shirt. Every time they wear the badge, they have to go and bleed for their country. And if they don't, well, we don't want them representing our country. So you're saying, hey, go give maximum. It's a friendly. It's a friendly against the Turks and Caicos, but you better lay it all on the line or we don't want you, right? But that only forces the players then into a situation where they're playing for their livelihood, they're playing for the club team. And by the way, the fans are of the club teams are no less demanding, right? Everybody is demanding the most they can possibly give, and if you show any sign of slacking, well, you're out. I mean, that puts impossible demands on these players. And I don't know that anybody's really considering Wenger's proposal right now. But as we continue to hear players talk about the load that they're under, and maybe the clubs also need to be cognizant of this and find ways. I mean, you and I have talked about, is the elimination of the League Cup coming at some point? That's just one country, though. But is the elimination of the League Cup coming? Because that's just too much. You can't throw these teams continually into the grinder and ask them to come out playing good soccer. It's an open question. I'm open to it. I have to think about what a whole month off from club football looks like, and teams flying around to play qualifiers, and again organizing that, because Wenger is proposing 4 groups and all these 7 matches total. Think about the number of matches that CONMEBOL nations play to qualify for a World Cup. Right? There are 10 countries in CONMEBOL. You play everybody twice. That's 18 matches over a 3.5-year span to qualify for a World Cup. That is tradition. That is baked into the identity of South American football. If you say, well, you only got a month to do qualifying now, or we're doing a month every year, you can only play a certain number of games, that's going to put a different kind of pressure on everybody involved.
Well, just like any change to an established pattern or calendar or entity, there's always going to be unintended consequences, right? Like, while maybe if this plan goes into effect, I'm sure there would be some sort of a con that you don't get to, that you wouldn't think of ahead of time. Just coming to think of it, South America probably produces the most variables with the amount of games and all that. Plus, that South American fans probably would be upset that they don't get to see their Brazilian stars, their Argentina stars for 9 months at a time.
All of those things are at play. Just we don't do change very well, right? Like, I mean, people think of sports in terms of tradition, and when you start messing with that idea of tradition, people get very, very upset about it. And I think it's been true, even in America, even with Major League Soccer, which doesn't have the deepest history. You throw the League's Cup pause into the mix and people freak out. Obviously the way that MLS has treated the U.S. Open Cup, which we talked about, bucks against tradition. They'll come up with some rationalization for why they're doing it, and we can see through that on some level. But for them, if they say, well, it's because there are too many games and we need to stop doing it, but we scream about the denial of the tradition of that tournament, and this is going to be true for anything that gets changed. And this is why it's tough for a guy like Wenger, who's been, again, maybe a little kooky, maybe, but also been asked by FIFA to figure out a way to handle some, to make things better that might be a problem. And whether or not there's any will to actually make those changes, we shall see.
All that said, I'm excited to see USA play 2 games this weekend coming up in Mauricio Pochettino's first effort leading the U.S. men's national team. If you want to get a hold of us at MKickaround on the X and the Instagram, and if you want to write us a note, questions, comments, concerns, or partnership opportunities, morningkickaround at Gmail.
Gmail. Was it Gmail?
Gmail.
Gmail. But that's a G. It's not, isn't it Gmail? Not Gmail? Is it a soft G? How do G's work? Robert, explain that to me.
In the digital world, it's free to express yourself how you
Is it a GIF or a GIF? Are we doing that? Are we still doing that? Okay. Also, like and subscribe the show. Like the video, subscribe to the show. I see we just ticked up to 160, and it's still early days for us. So we're gonna celebrate that like we've done something big. 160 subscribers. But this is the most important thing. Tell somebody. Tell somebody about Morning Kick Around. Tell somebody that we're here, that we're doing it every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Get involved. Also, be part of the show with comments and interaction and those kind of things. What else? Robert.
we've been averaging about 10 new subscribers per show. We're going to keep that up, and at that rate, we will be at 50,000 at the turn of the new year.
Don't check the math. Don't check the math on that. Don't check the math at all. Yeah, we're gonna get there. We promise. Somehow, tell everybody. If you again, this is on everybody watching, everybody who finds us, everybody who's already subscribed. If you tell somebody and they tell somebody else and they tell somebody else, I know this is like very cliche, old school word of mouth marketing kind of concepts, but they work. They work.
You hear the show, you talk to other people about the show.